It was a cold autumn morning in Manhattan. The streets buzzed with the usual energy of the city, honking cars, rushing feet, and the distant echo of a saxophone from a subway performer. Among the sea of people was Victor Hale, a 47-year-old self-made millionaire. He walked briskly, dressed in a sleek navy suit and leather gloves, eyes fixed on his phone, barely noticing the world around him. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It's always special to have you here with us, living these amazing stories. Victor was the CEO of a successful tech company, known for his brilliance, discipline, and ruthlessness in business. People respected him, feared him, but few knew him. Since his divorce 5 years ago and the death of his mother shortly after, Victor had withdrawn emotionally. Wealth became his armor, and success his only language. As he passed the corner of Fifth Avenue and East 62nd, he heard faint sobs, a child's cries. He slowed his pace but didn't stop. On the edge of the sidewalk by a lamppost sat a boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, shivering, alone and crying quietly. His face was streaked with tears, his clothes thin and damp from the morning drizzle. Victor's eyes met the boy's for a brief second. "Help, mister," the boy whimpered, barely audible. Victor hesitated. Something inside him stirred, a flicker of discomfort or maybe guilt. But he turned his head and kept walking. He didn't have time for this. He had a meeting in 20 minutes and a potential merger worth billions on the line. As he entered the building lobby, Victor reached into his coat pocket to take out his ID and his wallet was gone. He froze. Panic hit. His ID, credit cards, everything. Missing. "Damn it," he muttered, stepping aside and checking all his pockets again. Nothing. Retracing his steps mentally, he thought of the subway, the cafe, the walk across the park. Then suddenly, the boy. Could it have been a setup? He quickly turned and walked back toward the corner where he'd seen him. And there he was, still sitting, still crying, but now holding something in his small hands. Victor's heart stopped. It was his wallet. The boy wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was just sitting there, staring at the wallet as if it were made of gold and pain all at once. Victor approached him slowly, a mix of anger, confusion, and curiosity in his chest. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice cold but trembling. The boy looked up with wide, innocent eyes. It fell from your coat when you passed by," he said softly. "I was going to give it back, but I didn't know how." Victor knelt, speechless. His gaze dropped to the boy's hands, scratched, pale, dirty. His nose was red from the cold. His shoes were worn and too big for his feet. "I didn't take it," the boy added quickly. "I swear. I just wanted to keep it safe in case you came back." Something shattered inside Victor, his usual skepticism, his wall of indifference, all of it cracked as he stared into those honest eyes. And then he asked, without thinking, "What's your name, kid?" "Tyler," the boy said. "My mom used to bring me here when we had a home, but she's gone now." Victor's throat tightened. He felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest, a mix of sorrow and protectiveness. "Gone," he whispered. "She got sick. Real bad. I tried to help, but no one listened. Then one day, she didn't wake up." Victor lowered his eyes, ashamed. He had everything. This boy had nothing, yet he still wanted to do the right thing. And Victor had walked past him. He gently reached out and took the wallet, but as he did, his hand didn't pull away. He looked into Tyler's eyes again, and for the first time in years, Victor felt something other than ambition. He felt human. Victor sat on a nearby bench, the wet chill of the morning no longer a concern. Tyler hesitated, but Victor motioned for him to sit beside him. The boy's tiny frame trembled from the cold and exhaustion. Victor, unbuttoning his coat, placed it around Tyler's shoulders. "I shouldn't have ignored you," he muttered. "I'm sorry." Tyler glanced at him, surprised. "It's okay. Most people do." That sentence hit harder than it should have. Victor had built walls his entire life, to protect himself, to survive, to win. But this little boy, without anything to his name, was more honest and courageous than anyone Victor had met in boardrooms or billionaire circles. Victor offered to buy him a warm breakfast, and they walked together to a small diner down the street. Over pancakes and hot chocolate, Tyler opened up. His mother had worked 2 jobs until she got sick. After losing her, Tyler tried to stay with a neighbor, but things turned dangerous. Eventually, he ran. He had been sleeping in bus stations and behind grocery stores for the last 3 weeks. Victor listened in silence, stunned. He couldn't wrap his head around the idea of a child surviving like that in a city filled with so many wealthy, comfortable people, including himself. "Did you ever go to the police?" Victor asked. "I did, once. But they told me they'd take me somewhere, and I got scared. I thought maybe they'd split me from my mum forever if she came back." Victor swallowed hard. He could see his younger self in Tyler, not literally, but emotionally. Abandonment, fear, silence. He had buried those feelings long ago, but Tyler was digging them back up simply by existing. Victor took a day off work. His assistant was confused, his board members shocked. Victor never missed meetings, but something bigger was happening. Over the next few days, Victor kept seeing Tyler. He took him to get new clothes, a haircut, a proper meal each night. But he also did more. He visited the shelter where Tyler's mom had once gone for help. He checked hospitals, he asked questions, and what he found shocked him to his core. Tyler's mom had indeed died. But before she passed, she left behind a handwritten letter trying to find a safe home for her son. The letter was never delivered. It had been lost in the shuffle of an overwhelmed system, and the name she had written at the top, Victor Hale. He stared at the letter, stunned. It wasn't a coincidence. Years ago, during one of his rare philanthropic ventures, he had briefly helped fund an outreach program that offered legal and housing support for struggling mothers. Tyler's mother, Sophia, had been one of the recipients. Victor remembered her. Kind eyes, a soft voice. She had thanked him once at an event and mentioned her son. She'd even sent a follow-up note through the foundation's office, which he had never seen. Victor sat in silence, staring at the letter, guilt washing over him like a wave. She trusted me, he thought, and I failed her. Now he had a second chance. He returned to Tyler that evening and said gently, "I knew your mum, Tyler, a long time ago." Tyler's eyes widened. "You did?" Victor nodded. "She was brave, and she loved you more than anything." The boy's lip quivered. "I miss her." Victor placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know, but I want to help now, if you'll let me." Victor Hale hadn't been inside a courtroom in years. Not for anything personal, but now he found himself sitting across from a social worker and a family court judge, seeking temporary guardianship of Tyler Matthews. "Are you related to the child, Mr. Hale?" the judge asked sternly. Victor hesitated. "No, Your Honor, but I made a promise to his mother. I didn't keep it in time. Now I want to make it right." The judge leaned back, reading the paperwork Victor had gathered. The letter from Sophia, the shelter records, proof of Tyler's recent homelessness. The social worker, Mrs. Granger, cleared her throat. "I visited Mr. Hale's residence. The boy seems comfortable and safe. He speaks highly of him, but the emotional bond is still fragile. I recommend a probationary guardianship with weekly check-ins." Victor nodded. "I accept that." Outside the courthouse, Tyler waited on the steps, legs swinging, a paper cup of hot cocoa in hand. When Victor came out and gave a subtle smile, Tyler tilted his head. "What'd they say?" Victor knelt beside him. "That you can stay with me, for real this time, at least for now." Tyler's eyes filled with tears, and he threw his arms around Victor's neck. "I don't want to go anywhere else," he whispered. Victor blinked back emotion. "You won't." Listen. That evening, their new chapter began. Victor converted his rarely used guest room into a cozy bedroom. Books, superhero posters, soft blankets. He even got a golden retriever puppy, which Tyler named Rocket. But change wasn't easy. Some nights, Tyler woke up screaming from nightmares. Other times, he flinched when someone raised their voice. Victor struggled too. His work piled up, his schedule turned upside down, and for the first time in decades, he felt truly vulnerable. One day, during a video meeting, Tyler accidentally knocked over a glass of juice onto Victor's laptop. The call disconnected, and Victor instinctively yelled, "Tyler!" The boy froze, his eyes filled with fear. I didn't mean..." Victor stopped himself. He exhaled, knelt down, and pulled Tyler into a hug. "I'm sorry, kid. That wasn't your fault. I'm not mad. Accidents happen, all right?" Tyler nodded slowly, holding back tears. That was the day Victor realized this wasn't just about taking care of a boy. It was about healing himself, too. For the first time since his mother died and his marriage collapsed, he was learning how to feel again. One rainy afternoon, as they walked through Central Park with rockets splashing in puddles ahead of them, Tyler looked up and asked, "Do you think my mum would be proud of me?" Victor paused. "I think she'd be proud of how brave you are and how big your heart is." Tyler smiled. "You think she'd like Rocket?" Victor chuckled. "She'd love him, and you know what else?" "What?" "She'd be proud of you for trusting someone again. That takes guts." Tyler nodded, then took Victor's hand. It was a small gesture, but for Victor, it was everything. Weeks turned into months. The penthouse apartment that once echoed with silence and routine now pulsed with laughter, footsteps, and the occasional bark from Rocket. Victor Hale, once cold, calculated, and solitary, had become someone else entirely, someone alive. But change came with growing pains. Tyler, despite his joy, struggled at school. He was behind in reading and math. His teachers were kind but concerned. Victor attended every parent-teacher meeting, took him to tutoring, even stayed up late helping him with flashcards, something he never imagined himself doing. One evening, after a long study session, Tyler slumped over the table. "I'm never going to catch up," he muttered. Victor gently lifted his chin. "Listen to me. You're not behind. You're just starting from a harder place. That doesn't mean you won't finish strong." Tyler blinked, then cracked a tiny smile. "You always know what to say," Victor chuckled. "I used to only know how to talk to investors. You're my toughest audience yet." Meanwhile, Victor's business partners grew impatient. His absence in meetings, declining performance charts, and missed deals led to whispers of boardroom replacements. One partner, Martin Lasker, confronted him at lunch. "Victor, you've changed. You used to be sharp, cutthroat. Now you're skipping mergers to go to school concerts." Victor sipped his coffee, calm. That school concert was the first time a kid who lost everything got a standing ovation for playing piano in front of strangers. Martin scoffed. "You think heart makes a company run?" Victor stood up. "No, but heart makes a life worth living, and I have one now." The board tried to push him out, but Victor had already begun the process of transitioning his CEO role. He appointed a successor, someone with the same business sense but more empathy. He took a step back, not in retreat, but in purpose. It wasn't about wealth anymore. It was about meaning. At home, Tyler's nightmares slowly faded. He began drawing again. Superheroes, space explorers, dragons. And one day, Victor noticed something. In every drawing, the hero had the same face. "Is that me?" he asked, amused. Tyler nodded. "You don't have powers or anything, but you saved me." Victor was speechless. He looked at the boy, realizing how far they had both come. Tyler no longer cried alone on the street. Victor no longer walked past broken souls without a second thought. They had saved each other. Later that month, Victor surprised Tyler with a visit to Sophia's old neighborhood. They found the community center where she had volunteered, painted murals, and led reading circles. Tyler stared at a faded photo of her on the wall, smiling, young, full of life. "That's her," he whispered. "That's my mom." Victor knelt beside him. "She was an incredible woman. She never gave up, and she never stopped loving you." They lit a candle in her memory. Tyler held Victor's hand tightly, and together they stood in silence, honoring a woman who, even in her final days, believed in hope. It was a bright spring morning when Victor received an official envelope from Family Court of New York City. Inside was a notice for a final hearing, one that would decide whether Tyler could stay with him permanently, not just under temporary guardianship. Victor read the letter twice, his hands trembling. Though he had changed every part of his life for this boy, he knew the system was unpredictable. Foster care placements were rising. Judges preferred licensed families. And Victor had a complicated past, a divorce, a high-stress job, no parenting experience before this. He glanced at Tyler, who was sitting on the floor sketching Rocket in superhero armor. "I hope they see what I see," he whispered to himself. The court date arrived. Victor wore a modest suit. Tyler wore the same little navy blue blazer from his school recital. He held Victor's hand tightly as they walked through the courthouse doors. Inside, the judge, Justice Beverly Morgan, was firm but fair. She had read all the reports, school progress, emotional evaluations, Victor's background, the counselor notes, everything. "You've done an impressive job, Mr. Hale," she said. "But this is still an extraordinary request. You're not a relative, nor a licensed guardian. What makes you believe you're the best person for this child's future?" Victor stood. His voice shook slightly. On the first time in years he'd spoken from the heart rather than from logic. "Your Honor, I used to believe money could solve anything. That success was about what you built, not who you became. Then I met a boy on the street, crying alone, and I walked right past him. I had everything, and I ignored him. He took a deep breath. But that boy didn't steal from me. He gave something back. He made me feel again. He made me a father even before I knew how to be one." He turned slightly and looked at Tyler, who gave him a tiny, hopeful smile. "I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, but this child, he is my purpose now. He is my second chance, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure he never feels abandoned again." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge seemed moved. Later that day, as the sun filtered through the courthouse windows, the gavel finally came down. "Permanent guardianship is granted to Mr. Victor Hale." Tyler's mouth dropped open. Victor knelt down and Tyler ran into his arms, sobbing. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was joy. "Does this mean I'm staying?" Tyler asked. Victor nodded, unable to hold back tears. "Forever, kid." They left the courthouse hand in hand, stepping into a world that finally felt like home. The seasons changed again. Spring turned to summer, and Victor's once sterile penthouse had become a place of warmth, creativity, and noise, the good kind. Tyler's laughter echoed through the halls. Rocket's paws tapped across the hardwood floors. And Victor, for the first time in his adult life, woke up with a reason bigger than himself. Tyler was thriving. He no longer feared bedtime. His grades improved. He made friends, joined the art club, and even won a small school competition for a comic strip he created. The main character, a man in a suit with a glowing heart who saves lost children. Victor framed the drawing and placed it in his office. On weekends, they explored the city. Museums, libraries, old bookstores. Victor even took him to a Yankees game, though Tyler was more interested in the popcorn than the home runs. But amidst the laughter and healing, Victor never forgot what brought them together, a moment of neglect followed by a second chance. He began to fund outreach programs again, not just by writing checks, but by showing up. He spoke at shelters, partnered with schools, and created a mentorship initiative for children without families. "I used to walk past people like Tyler," he told a group of donors once. "Now I build places where no one has to be ignored again." One afternoon, as they sat on a rooftop watching the sunset, Tyler leaned his head on Victor's arm. "Do you think Mom knows?" Victor looked at him. "Knows what? That I'm okay now? That I'm happy?" Victor placed an arm around his shoulders, the city skyline glowing orange behind them. "I think she knows everything," he said softly, "and I think she's proud of you." Tyler nodded. "And you too?" Victor looked down, surprised. "Me?" Tyler smiled. "Yeah, she picked even you if you were late." Victor laughed through the lump in his throat. "Yeah, I guess she did." They sat in silence, the kind that says more than words ever could. Victor Hale didn't need another billion-dollar deal, another luxury car, or another empty apartment. He had Tyler, and that meant everything. We've shared another story full of emotion. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and come experience more unforgettable moments with us. God bless you.